So in this video, I'm going to show you how to mat your two photos onto mat board for the final project. You're going to mat your negative and positive side by side. As you can see on this one, they have their negative on the right and their positive on the left. They don't have to be in that order. It just kind of depends on your preference. And I'll show you some examples of that here in just a minute. The first step for doing this is to get your tissue, dry mount tissue attached to your pictures. So first of all, this is the matting area here in the corner of the classroom with the irons that you're going to be using for tacking the tissue onto the back of the paper, the dry mount press, and there's a trimmer and some of the mat board. Now we're not going to be using the mat board in the yellow bin yet. That is 8 by 10. We're going to be using the mat board in the blue bin, the 11 by 14 for our photos. So we will get to the mat board here in just a minute. Also in the blue bin, there is this dry mount tissue. So this is the tissue that we use for adhering the photos onto the mat board. There is not a top or bottom to the tissue. It's the same on both sides. And it works like an adhesive once heat is applied. So that's where the press and the irons come in. But we first need to get a piece sized correctly for the photos that we are mounting. So we're going to cut this down a little bit so that we have a size big enough for the photos. Okay, so approximately 4 by 5. So I'm going to use the trimmer, same way you use the trimmer with cutting your paper. And we kind of have some scraps in here right now, but you can just take whatever scraps are in there or 8 by 10 sheets that are in there to cut down for your pictures. So I just need something right now that is at least a little bit bigger than my 4 by 5 pinhole photos. Okay, so I have a positive and negative to show you. And I'm going to, before I trim the picture down, I'm first going to attach the tissue to the back of the photos. We want to do that first because we want to be able to trim the photo paper and the tissue together so that they are the exact same size. Okay, so to attach them, we're going to take these over to the irons, and the irons are what are going to apply heat so that they will stick together. So I'm going to line this up so the picture is underneath the tissue, and again there's not a top or a bottom to the tissue, and I'm just going to use the very tip, okay, the very tip here of the iron itself, and I'm only going to put this in the center, and I'm just going to move that around a little bit until it seems like it's sticking. Okay, so that has stuck together, and I'm going to do that with both my negative and my positive so that they are stuck together. And again, I'm just doing this in the center because we're going to need the corners later. So I'm just sticking that right in the center, moving that around, and the irons sit on these little brackets here. Okay, so they're not sitting right on the countertop. Now I can take my negative and positive back over to the trimmer, and we're going to cut these down so that they fit and are the same size. I move this a little bit closer. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to put this in here. Now on your negative and positive, first of all, on your negative, you have the white border on the sides, okay? You want to cut that completely off. I already have that trimmed off of these because I've used those for demonstration, but you want to make sure you're cutting that completely off. And on your positive, those strips are going to be black. So you want to have it so that it is just your picture and no black strips or white strips on the sides of them. So with the trimmer, I'm going to put this under here, and I don't need to trim much off of these because, like I said, I already kind of cut off the white and black on these, but I'm going to line up. This is going to cut anything hanging over this metal edge. So I'm going to line this up along the metal edge, so I'm trimming just a little bit. And then I'm going to put this, once I have my first edge cut, I can put this all the way against the ruler at the top, slide this over, and again trim And this time I know that I'm cutting and it's going to be square because I have my picture all the way up against the ruler at the top. And then I just turn it. I put that edge that I just cut up against the ruler at the top. Trim that a little bit. And turn it again and do one last cut. And this will trim off even some very tiny little slivers. Okay, so if you just need to trim off a little bit, it will do that. I'm going to do the same thing for my negative. Make sure I have my edge there straight with the metal edge, and then put that at the top so that I'm cutting all of these and they're all going to be square. Okay, now the one thing you want to do before we start measuring out the mat board is we want to make sure that these are going to come together in the middle. So for example, I want to line up his jeans, okay, right at that edge and right at the bottom of his shoe. I want those two lines to come together and join right in the middle. Okay, so you want to lay these out, line up those elements that will come together in the middle, and then see if you need to trim a little bit maybe off the top and the bottom. I just need to trim a tiny bit off the top of this one to get that to be the same height. And I think that will be perfect right there, okay? And you can see, again, this one is having the negative on the right and the positive on the left, just like they did with this one. But again, you can switch that based on how you want things to line up in your two pictures. So feel free to do that. The next step is going to be to measure out our mat board. Now that we have these cut, we have the tissue attached, we're going to measure out the mat board so that our mat board is going to fit the pictures exactly and have an 1.5 inch border all the way around like this example.